And going through SEAL training, like no one's ever, you can't survive that as an individual. You're not getting through there. I mean, I'm going for, miles and miles and miles of running with a, 400-pound telephone pole on my shoulder, and certainly didn't do that as an individual. Miles of paddling and rowing with a 400-pound boat on your head. Like you're not doing that as an individual. You have to figure out how to work as a team. And when you really come together as a team is, as crazy as it sounds, you're going through, you may have heard of Hell Week. Hell Week is early on in training, and basically you're awake for an entire week, and your crew, you're together with your crew with that boat, affixed to your head for the whole week. And come Wednesday with zero sleep from Sunday until Friday when you're done. That's rough. You will fall asleep while running, like it's no joke. I mean, you're running down the beach, and a micro nap kicks in, and you'll just fall and bounce off the sand. And it's crazy. It's a crazy process. They've really got it figured out. But it's in that moment that when you go down is like that weight. That weight just got distributed 6 ways instead of 7. And it's your get back up.
We are The David Johnson Show, bringing the veteran community stories and perspectives so you can design the life that you deserve.
Strong like a tree, there's roots where I stand.
Thanks for tuning in to The David Johnson Show. Today's discussion is on leadership. Joining us here in the Phoenix studio is John Fussell. Appreciate you flying out, John.
Great to be here.
It is impossible to even begin to talk about everything you did in the military, but your 20-year career in the SEAL teams earned you the title of Retired Navy SEAL Commander. You fought hard and desired to stay in combat leadership roles from some of the earliest deployments right after 9/11 until you attended NPS, Naval Postgraduate School, in 2011. Above and beyond that, your desire to serve and your desire to lead ultimately put you in leading some of the most elite of the elite in the Navy SEAL community. And then upon retirement, holding chief of staff positions at companies like Wellington Management out of Boston and starting your own company, all while standing by your side, Rachel, while surviving and battling breast cancer. That's an amazing story.
It's been a busy stretch, but I feel like I should be a little bit bigger the way you described that.
No, you are, trust me. Well, just getting to know you very briefly the past few months, it's been an honor and a pleasure, and somebody I could say with conviction that understands leadership from the highest level all the way down to executing it on a team level. It's an honor just to be here.
Again, thanks for having me. I think this is a really cool vision that you got, and hopefully I'm a little value added to it.
Well, thank you. So it's always a challenge for me where to start the show off, because there's so many angles we could go, but humor me and start it off. Talk to me about Naval Postgraduate School. And for the people that may not know what it is it?
Okay, so Naval Postgraduate School is, like the name says, it's a graduate school. You can do any degree you want out there. It's run by the Navy. All branches can attend. Foreign officers come over and go through. Officers and enlisted go through there as well. And you can do, you want to do a science degree, an MBA. I did defense analysis, and the programs range from a year to 2.5 years, depending on what you're going to do. It's out in Monterey, California.
So you choose that degree program, you graduate with a master's.
Yes.
That's interesting. So while you were there, some of the coursework you did, you wrote a thesis in identifying high growth and high personnel, or high potential personnel, I should say. Talk to me a little bit about that thesis that you wrote.
Yeah, the thesis was really interesting. I really enjoyed doing that. I think Naval Postgraduate School tends to have a little bit of a chip on its shoulder because people are like, it's a military thing. It's a rubber stamp. You're going to send, everybody's going to graduate. And actually, the course load out there is significant. So it's higher than most graduate programs. Wow. And everybody's required to do a thesis, which, if you've gone through the thesis process, is no joke. Thank God my teammates carried me through. But so we, there was a big retention problem in my former community, and there still is at the mid ranks. It's very typical for officers, and you remember from your time in the military. So we decided we really wanted to focus on that and go just beyond what's going on with retention. We wanted to talk about the identification, grooming, and retention of high potentials. And I was already kind of a student of the game. I'd really paid attention to this stuff for quite a while. Post 9/11, started watching how it evolved. It was just different post 9/11. But that was the first time for a solid 18 months we got to roll our sleeves up and really dive into it. Yeah.
So was that when you're writing thesis statements, I think data, science, research, was that for a lot of it came from your personal experience, or were there already publications that you could research and find data on that?
Yeah, no, they held our feet to the fire. We had to do a real thesis, so we had to do a lot of research.
Wow.
We did go out and connect with every company that we could get our hands on to talk to them about, okay, what are you doing for your people? How are you bringing your high potentials in? What are you doing to separate them from the pack and let them know that you care about them on them? So it was a great process. We enjoyed doing it. Because
there is a problem of losing that talent in the ranks, the experienced folks.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, and I came in, we talked about our paths. I came in SEAL teams pre 9/11, and I came in 1995 right after undergraduate school. And, so I was in SEAL teams for a stretch before 9/11 went down. And when top performers moved on, we were bummed to see him go, but we weren't at war. So like, Bob's a great guy. We're going to miss Bob, and Joe's going to do just fine backfilling Bob. Post 9/11, it was just the stakes were just higher. It was critical that every one of our A+ players stayed, and we weren't hitting that mark.
Do you think the op tempo of deployments had a little bit to do with people leaving?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, some guys, have what it takes to get through the initial SEAL training, which is, more proud of anybody that gets through that program. I barely survived it. It's no joke. And then you get there, and then there's a very, very small fraction of guys that face the realities of war and like, okay, that's just not for me. And they'll sort of self-select out. That's a very, very tiny number. The training program kind of vets for that in the first place. And then beyond that, to your point, the op tempo, it's a grind. It's a motivated, smart bunch of guys, and it is a grind. I mean, when I was doing the job, I leaned heavily into the job until they sent me to graduate school. And, you sleeping, if you're doing the job, you're home maybe 100 nights a year.
Right.
You start doing that for decades and beyond, it's a grind. And, we all know you're not making any money, and your brother's got a daytime job and, working someplace, making 5X what you're making maybe, I'm exaggerating, but, so yeah, it's a grind.
What shift in mentality was that for you to go from that op tempo, the constant deployments, also being in a command and leadership role and on the ground to MPS? Was that a welcome change?
I knew it was time to do it. And it was hard. I think I literally almost got in a fist fight one time with a guy who was in charge of our systems. As you know, there's different levels of classification per your emails and what you have access to. And coming from where I was coming from, I had a very, very high level. And it was pretty hard to get that level of access there. But it could be done. And it was down in the bowels of this, behind multiple locked doors. And just a very few of us could actually, and it took a while. And I went from having real access to daily reports, intel, reading straight what was coming off the battlefield, watching the news cycle, how far behind the news cycle was, to nothing. And then it took me a couple of months out there to get it back up, and it was I was so kind of addicted to that tempo. But then I kind of realized, like, once I did get access to it, that I slowly kind of weaned myself off of it, and I just realized, like, I can actually watch the news, and I kind of know the gap and what's true and what's not. And
not to pry, but did you want that level of access out there because you wanted to stay informed, or you're still consulting, so to speak, or with the community, or what?
I was just trying to keep tabs on what my buddies were doing. I mean, and I was so used to going in every morning and reading the after action reports and seeing what had just happened, and when you really, really have your pulse on the things that's fresh off the battlefield, it's different, and that's it's a little addictive knowing you have that level of access. But it was a good time to wean myself off of it, though. Wow.
We were talking the other day, and you talked about when you made the decision to retire, it was a full-on, dare I say, mission to start planning that retirement. You took it serious. It was a very deliberate. You took very deliberate steps. So talk about when you made that decision, I'm going to retire.
Yeah.
What started going through your mind?
Yeah. So and again, the military process. So I was an enlisted guy for about 5 years, and then I got my commission, and I was coming home from my final deployment over to Afghanistan, and I think the detailer, the guy who gives you your next set of orders, your next job, he was looking at my paperwork for my time as an officer. So he saw 12 years. Oh. And typically mid-career officers are like, hey, we're going to send this guy to graduate school. He'll go to graduate school for 18 months or 24 months, and then he'll owe a payback tour. So if you're in for your 12-year mark, you get 18 months of school, you wake up, you're almost 14, payback tour, boom, next thing you know, 16. So that guy's thinking retention. Like, hey, if I send this guy to graduate school, I'll get 20 years out of this guy. He wasn't quite paying attention to the fact that I had 5 years enlisted time. So I was not at 12, I was at about 17. And
And then PS would wrap that up.
Saw the writing on the wall, and my wife and I sat down, and we'd had 2 kids, talking about having our third. Our son joined us when I was going through grad school.
Oh, nice.
And we just did a full systems check on the family and said, look, we've been through a lot, and I think it's time to 20 will be good. So, and then to your point, it became a mission.
Not to veer off, but more power to your family and your wife to stay from that. I mean, even prior to 9/11, but the up tempo from 9/11 to 2011, when you were probably home 100 days a year or whatever have you, that takes a powerful family unit.
No, the wives deserve all the credit in the world.
That's amazing. So you made the decision, I'm going to retire. What then steps did you take? I mean, active steps, your mindset, did it start changing? Do I stay in the same industry I'm in now? Do I get out? Do I just see what's out there? I mean, how does that even go down for somebody at your level?
Well, I mean, I started talking to a lot of great people. I had the opportunity to interact while I was in Naval Postgraduate School. A lot of great supporters there, a lot of Silicon Valley types. So I met a bunch of great people and started picking people's brains about everything that was out there. And, we can talk later maybe about the various vets coming out at different milestones.
Sure.
For a guy who's going to be retiring at 44 years old, I'm like, oh, we're going to go old dog, new tricks. What are we doing here? Or we're going to try to leverage what's already between my ears. And my thought was like, let's leverage what I already bring to the fight, because you don't want to put me shoulder to shoulder with some 26-year-old and expect us to that's silly. So I started looking industry, seeing what was out there and where could my abilities be most effectively leveraged. And I didn't want to go defense contracting world, which nothing against guys. I have buddies that have done that, and that's a great option. It's a very natural progression.
So there was no thinking. You immediately knew I did not want to go defense contracting. That was you just internally
pretty
knew.
much. And you are your last job. And my thought process was, look, 20 years in the SEAL teams, followed by some time at big defense contractor, and then if I walk out of that, I'm kind of typecasted for life, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to take on something new and different. So everything, I was kind of industry agnostic, and but I interviewed all over the place. I did end up connecting with some great folks in the finance world. Having never balanced my checkbook in my life, ended up sitting on the trading desk. Yeah, but it was great. It was a great transition.
And not just the finance world. You went to a top name firm, maybe not top name in the sense that I'm USAA and I'm on a billboard, but top name as in a major player in the field.
Yeah, it's an amazing organization. I was very humbled to be a part of that and get my foot in the door. And super collegial shop. When I was looking at various, from tech to whatever, everything I was looking at, I was looking for people and culture. And I didn't want to go, again, at 44 years old, I didn't want to go hang out someplace with a bunch of sharp elbows who people didn't want to, let's not help this guy. And so I wanted to go someplace that was, good people. And that shop for certainly had that.
Wow. So getting into the topic of leadership a little bit and touching on a few concepts, I've read some articles that I found online that you've contributed to in Forbes and whatnot, and you touch on this aspect of the human component. Briefly talk to me about some leadership traits, roles, if you will, from the military side, and then transitioning that into, dare I say, the corporate America side or the civilian side. What are some of the similarities or your first experiences that you've seen?
I think, it's really tough to, a lot of people are like, hey, we want to touch a little bit of that, what the military has. And it's hard. If you think about the military, think about the age demographic, particularly like at the combat level. So it's, at the higher end, but the more specialized units, you're starting about 25 years old,
sure.
For an average new SEAL. And, but, from 20s, like pro athletics, early 20s to late 30s, all have a common focus. Nobody's making any money. They're all putting the guy to their left and their right before themselves. Like that you're not really going to replicate that in corporate America exactly. That's just the reality, and it's not a shot at anybody. It's not a bad thing, but I think the stuff that does translate or that you see everywhere is just driven people they want leadership. They have a hunger for leadership. They want leaders who step up and make calls, are not afraid to make calls, who are not afraid to take action. And that really. So I saw that kind of universally, and. Leaders who are paying attention to the energy flow and amongst the team and all that.
So I'm glad you brought up energy flow, because I literally printed out and highlighted this article that I saw that you wrote, and you talk about energy. We all know the term energy. We hear the term energy. I think high energy, I get a good night's sleep, I wake up, I'm alert, I'm motivated. Translate to me energy as it relates to a leader and what that means and how you disseminate that amongst the team.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to it. So there's no real quick short answer on that one. But the leaders that I had the opportunity to, my peers who were leaders who were I was blown away by how good they were. And then people that were senior to me that I worked for, the leaders that I worked with and for that I aspired to be most like were the ones that really had their finger on the pulse of what was going on. They paid attention to there's some epic highs and some epic lows when you're going to combat, and some bad stuff. But it was the leaders that had their finger on that, could pay attention, and that inspired their people. Not like Henry V, back into the Breach Brothers. I'll mess that quote up all day long, but not that sort of rah-rah type stuff. As great as Shakespeare writing that was, but it's about through actions. I say the leaders who aren't afraid to take action, the leaders who aren't afraid to own decisions, make decisions, and stand behind those calls. And and also like disseminating strategic vision. A lot of leaders, a lot of people think, oh, strategic vision, that's for the C-suite. Let them take care of that strategic vision stuff. I'm going to do my job. It's it's a relative term. And it's not about having the most junior private on the battlefield trying to think like an admiral or a general. That would be bad. and the opposite holds true really well. If you get stars on your collar, you shouldn't be running around in the tactical weeds. But it's the leaders who could scale that. Because if I just give you my to-do list, you're just going to go through the motions. Your energy is going to be blah, But if I can take my to-do list and we can sit down and it can become, a strategic vision for us, and you take your piece of it. Now you've got a strategic goal.
So does that go along with getting the team's buy-in, so they kind of want to do it, they know why they're doing it?
Yeah, again, at the levels that I was very fortunate enough to be a part of, you had just some driven folks that they barely need you there. It's that finest bit of like getting everybody in the same direction.
Right.
The military by design is people go down, you lose people. Nobody is irreplaceable, and if something, God forbid, happened to me or my right-hand man, somebody right there is going to step up and run with that.
At your ranks, yes, and the units you were in for sure. So speaking of that, tell me about a time when you were serving that you saw that leadership prevail, maybe something that just you felt proud of.
I was fortunate. My timing was very unique. I got to be a part of a lot of pretty amazing things, highs, and again, epic highs and epic lows along the way. There was a time kind of towards the end of my tactical career, we actually we got to stand up a brand new mission set in Afghanistan that had never been done before, and it was a daytime operation and sort of helicopter based, and we were doing interdictions, going out after guys, and it was unbelievable. It was an amazing process. The logistics that went into, the coordination that went into, and the speed with which it unfolded. Everybody knew down to the man what everybody else was thinking and doing and behaving. Wow. And that was just hands down. It was about a 4-month stretch for me. That was the most amazing stretch of my career.
Wow. And then what I'm hearing is, is successful. And I've heard you talk about the group versus the team. And at that team level, the leadership at the team level versus the group level, there's a difference. And you said, things kind of happen at the team level versus a group level.
Yeah,
what does that mean?
It's a discussion that's kind of come up, and I've been running around the finance world for a little over 5 years now, and I've met with lots of great people, and I always get, hey, come talk to our team. Okay, come talk to our team. And I kind of hit a point where I'm like, okay, you're a nice bunch of folks, but you are not a team. Not even close. And it's not a shot. It's just it's truth. Like, you are a group, and that's okay. If you look at you remember the military. If you look at the task organization in the military, there's no shortage of groups. I've worked for groups in the military, and they're great, and they can be very high functioning. If you look at the same task organization chart in the military, and you go to the tactical level where the bullets are flying, you're going to find teams.
So it's an example. I'm an infantry squad. Here's my guys. That's the team level.
Yeah, or I'm a fire team.
I'm a fire team. Right.
Team. And there's a lot of psychological stuff behind that. We have these social norms of behaviors that we're hardwired to do. Mob mentality is a real thing. Hopefully no one watching here has flipped over cars after the Bruins won a game, but that happens. Mob mentality. We're mammals and we do silly stuff. When I tell you you're part of a team, you're pre-wired to think about things differently than if I tell you you're part of a group.
So tell me how that team relates then into the civilian life. And I'll be candid. I haven't had a job in 12 years. I've been on my own. So
that's awesome.
I've never worked in a large company. I've always been on my own. What does team mean to these large companies? Do you have like a sales team, a marketing team? I honestly don't know what that means.
Yeah, I somewhat kid around about it. Your superpower when you're on a team, a real team, is your get back up, and you really learn this. I thought I knew pretty well what it was to be part of a team. I wrestled from, 6th or 7th grade all the way through college. And, if you know wrestling teams, it's a pretty scrappy bunch. We had each other's back. I mean, that was my team. And I knew those guys would look out for me no matter what. And then you get to the next level and then some, and it just blows that all away. And going through SEAL training, like no one's ever, you can't survive that as an individual. You're not getting through there. I mean, I've gone for, miles and miles and miles of running with a, 400-pound telephone pole on my shoulder, and I certainly didn't do that as an individual. Miles of paddling and rowing with a 400-pound boat on your head. Like you're not doing that as an individual. You have to figure out how to work as a team. And when you really come together as a team is, as crazy as it sounds, you may have heard of Hell Week. Hell Week is early on in training, and basically you're awake for an entire week, and your crew, you're together with your crew with that boat, affixed to your head for the whole week. And come Wednesday with zero sleep from Sunday until Friday when you're done.
That's rough.
You will fall asleep while running, like it's no joke. And you're running down the beach, and a micro nap kicks in, and you'll just fall and bounce off the sand. It's crazy. It's a crazy process. They've really got it figured out. But it's in that moment that when you go down is like that weight. That weight just got distributed 6 ways instead of 7. And it's your get back up. And that's a tough thing to replicate, and plenty of people in corporate America, I'm envious. You had never stepped foot in there, but no, it's great. It's great people. But plenty of people, there's no shame in like, hey, I'm a business development and I'm a sales guy or whatever, and this has been a rough stretch for me, and my numbers aren't where I wish they were this year. And you're coming into, Thanksgiving, and you're like, you know what, this has been a rough stretch. I'm just going to take a knee. I'll sort this out come January. And there's no shame in that, and you probably know people that have done it. If you're really part of a team, guarantee you, when you think you're going to take a knee come November 15th and chill out for 6 weeks, you're going to get back up.
Interesting.
And that's where you got to get to, where you really depend on one another.
So I read articles, and I've read every Forbes deal and entrepreneur.com deal, and they talk about company culture. I mean, is this part of, does a leader set this kind of company culture to set this team mentality?
Yeah, all day long. Yeah, hand in hand. It's almost synonymous.
So hand in hand. And this goes back to what you were saying earlier. I mean, humans have a desire to want to have leadership, right? I mean, you have this team, they desire to want to have a leader, maybe from an internal, just intrinsic value, but then teams can function more as a leader, right? Yep. Teams can function better with the leader, which boosts morale and productivity all around.
Yeah.
So these leaders that can do this, I mean, is this a trait you can learn, do you think?
I think there's some. So first of all, I say, when you're putting together your list of your SMEs, your subject matter experts that you want to go do something, and whatever that is, whatever industry you're in, I need a business development person, I need a relationship management person, whatever those subject matter experts are. You need to have leadership on there. That's it. That's no joke. It's a full-time job. And the truth is, like, leadership's a pain in the neck. It's not. Once you've stepped up and you said, I kind of figured this out. I think I can be beneficial in this realm. I can do it. But you realize it's none of the, if things are going well, you're not getting any of the praise. If things are going south, you're getting all the heat. Like that's leadership. If the opposite rings true in your world and you think you're in a leadership role, you might be thinking, I need to reorganize how I do this. And to your question, can it be nature versus nurture on leadership? I think there are some attributes that are nice to have if you're going to push someone into a leadership role. That said, it doesn't matter. You can learn to lead. You can say, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm definitely an extrovert. I mean, it's nice to be outgoing. It's nice to be able to communicate. I've worked for one of the best leaders I ever worked for, was about as big an introvert as you ever want to meet.
Interesting.
But he was awesome. He was an amazing leader.
What was a trait about him that made him that great leader?
Just such a thoughtful guy. And gave, was not afraid to give us all the rope and then some to hang ourselves with. And then when we needed minor course corrections, he was very humble and professional about saying, "Hey, you might want to factor this in."
Wow, that's good stuff. So let's fast forward a few years. I mean, present day, but you started a company, Patriot Leadership Development. What was the mindset behind that, and what do you do there?
So, like many things in my life, it's just kind of organically evolved. Initially, I had some people asking me to come in and speak to companies, and I was actually still active duty right towards the tail end of my career.
Oh, wow.
And so I went and had to talk to the JAGs, had to talk to legal, say, hey, can I go do these talks? They're like, yeah, make sure you don't talk about anything classified and all this stuff and break it out. And so I literally set up a small LLC to get things going. That kind of went back burner when I jumped into the full-time job in the finance world. But then within a couple of years in the finance world, it started kind of bubbling up, and I was being asked over and over, hey, can you come talk to us about this, talk to us about that, we have these high potentials, she's an up-and-comer, this group's being retasked. So I started getting asked more and more, both internally at the shop that I was working at, and then to strategic clients, and then outside altogether.
And is it more giving talks? Is it more one-on-one coaching? What's the when you're actually doing it at the company level? What are you doing with
it's
them?
Honestly, it's a little bit of all of the above. Coming in and meeting with, generally kind of go to big to small, meet with a bigger group, not huge groups. Occasionally I've done big stuff, but meeting with a complex, meeting with a few dozen folks, kind of talking through some thoughts on leadership, some things they might, because I still do a lot in the finance world, and everybody's realizing like a team-based structure is a really smart way to attack problems. And
I was just about to ask, is it like a foundation that you go in on, the team-based structure? Do you have a few leadership pillars that you like to lead with?
Exactly. Kind of come in and talk about, look, this is some stuff you should be doing. And again, very well-intended people, but me answering your phone when you're at lunch doesn't make us teammates. And I mean, that's, so taking it beyond that. And then that will typically lead to, for those who are more interested and get it, they're like, hey, that was great stuff. Could you come back and now we have a team of 6 of us. Can you actually spend some time with us? And
talking about how to be more cohesive and which directly can drive results in the business?
All day long, absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. Because they're more productive, happier per se.
Yep.
Interesting. So you've done talks, and we briefly talked about this, about veterans and maybe transitioning veterans and the hiring of veterans.
Right.
And there's different buckets of veterans per se.
Buckets.
The buckets.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that could be a whole conversation in and of itself. But briefly, what are these buckets?
So, I mean, what I've sort of seen in my just went over 5 years since I retired, and what I sort of identified along the path was, there's a lot of well-intended folks. I got asked to speak at the HR event up in New England a couple of years ago to all HR people who were hiring vets. And they're nice people, well-intended, but their overall understanding of the military was not where it should have been. And what I've sort of seen is there's various buckets of individuals that come out of the military. And skills versus abilities also plays into that. But bucket one, and this would, I know your career path, you came in, did 6 years?
Correct.
Use the GI Bill?
Absolutely.
And so you finished school when you were how old?
I graduated Arizona State in 2010, so about 28, 27.
So you're dead on bucket one. So bucket one is...
hopefully that's a good bucket.
It's a good bucket. I mean, bucket one is someone who comes out, doesn't have an undergraduate degree, does a stretch, probably uses the GI Bill, pick up a degree, and then moves on. And as an employer, you're hiring that individual. Most companies basically like, hey, look, there's another undergrad, let's hire him. Me, anybody who's paying attention, sorry, undergrads that didn't serve, but if I've got undergrad who did 4 or 5, 6 years in the Marine Corps or Army or whatever, and used the GI Bill and knocked it out, versus someone who came from mom and dad's house, is hanging out and knocking out their undergrad, my money's on the vet. A little bit older, a little bit more mature, a little bit more professional, hopefully, right. A couple things that maybe the military beaten into that individual.
Right.
But you're really not getting a leg up. You're still getting hired for the same thing. But in short time, my money says most of the vets are going to outperform the 23-year-old, who doesn't have their level of professionalism.
Do you think a lot of companies think like that?
I don't think so. And then again, it's not a shot at them. They're just not, if you really pay attention to
they
it,
don't know what they're getting.
Why this is more than just checking the block. Like, why do we want this individual? Well, they're a little bit more mature, a little bit, So you tried so back to the buckets, you tried to break it down of, okay, bucket one, you're the 23, 24, you're out. Bucket two, but you tried to break it down to teach these HR and hiring professionals of what you get from each bucket, what to expect from the veteran. Yeah. And then just on the same path, bucket two, a lot of young officers will come in and they'll transition around 6 to 10 years is when they transition. And since they all have an undergraduate degree, there's a lot of MBAs being picked up en route. So you get young fighter pilot who's flown jets for a few years, moving on, picking up a top-notch MBA, boom. And again, companies are really looking at that individual not a whole lot different than a standard 27 or 28-year-old MBA. She happens to be 33. Again, my money's on them. They're a little bit more mature. They've led. They have some unique abilities that they're bringing to bear. Bucket three would be me. I think. I don't know if that's really a bucket, but bucket three is kind of individuals that have doing a full career, 20 to 25 years. Not retiring as very, very senior folks. I retired as a lieutenant commander. I picked up commander, but I didn't pin it on. So I retired as a lieutenant commander. And those individuals, hopefully, you're looking to hire someone, because now you're talking about someone who's going to be, 40 years old plus, hopefully you're hiring them for what is in between their ears already. You know, and I've
The
seen
experience they have.
Yeah, they look this. I could hire 10 MBAs, but this individual has some unique experience. Was flew jets or did commanded Marines and did whatever. I'm going to bring them in. And then bucket 4, I kid around a little bit. And bucket 4 is really, really senior folks, like retired admirals and generals, and their big picture leadership, strategic level leadership stuff that those guys bring to bear is very unique. But they're not. They're also you're not hiring them to be a worker bee. Most of them you're be part of a board or things like that.
So you said something that kicked in some thoughts. I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. We talked about
here we go.
You talked about ability and skill, and I've heard you say before. Okay, skill set in the military. Okay, I could fly a plane, or I could shoot straight. I could pack a parachute. I could jump out of it. Those are skills, right? So when you got out, I mean, you went to, dare I say, a brand new industry that you never were in before.
Yeah.
But relating this ability to skill conversation back to you, you had the ability to learn new things, so to speak, think on your feet, think under pressure. I mean, that had to directly translate into being able to operate at the level you're operating in today on the outside.
I hope so. The verdict's still out there. We'll see. The jury's still out on that one. But no, yeah, it's one of the things that I sort of also identified over the years is a lot of vets are saying, hey, how do my skills translate? And there's lots of great transition companies that are really helping, like, oh, let's talk about how your skills transition. And, if you're the folks that don't know the military that well, it's an entire society. I mean, there's plumbers, there's dentists, you name it.
Right.
And I mean, if you have a skill set, if you are cranking a wrench on an F-18 and you're going to go to Delta and crank wrenches on a jet someplace, that is a skill that is transferring. The skills associated with my job, aren't really as transferable. You mentioned I know how to pack some parachutes and shoot straight, and no one's really looking for that outside of certain niche things, which I was kind of staying away from. But what I think is important when you're bringing in folks, is saying, well, what abilities does this individual have? Motivation. I'd like to think I can communicate pretty effectively with people, up and down the food chain. I can think on my feet. I can learn stuff relatively quickly. My recent MBA program tested that on me, but I survived it. but no, I mean, I'd like to think I can learn pretty quickly and think on my feet and keep my head under pressure. And those are abilities.
What would you take if you had to pick one? If you're hiring somebody,
I lean towards abilities. Yeah,
and that's the skill set.
Exactly. I mean, Excel's a skill. We can all just knuckle it out and figure it out eventually, and we'll get there. But can this individual think for themselves, and can I trust you to be an ambassador, no matter where I send you? And that's a big thing.
Let's get back into the human part of it. I've always been curious about this myself. There's got to be a relation to the human aspect of it. I mean, some people just are probably not good leaders. Would you agree? I mean, they just maybe don't have it. They haven't developed it yet. And the ones that do have it, you can be an introvert. You can be an extrovert. What more on the human side do you think makes a good leader?
Well, a lot of stuff. I think really just being selfless, humility. Combat will keep you humble all day long. There's some big egos. You start working in some of these high-end military units. There's some egos, but the guys that have really been there at the pointy end of the spear out there doing missions, once you've lost someone, within feet of you, you're like, I'm not Superman. I'm not bulletproof. There's no reason that I didn't step on that crush wire, and that'll really keep you humble. And I think the leaders, again, the ones that I aspired to be more like were the ones that were humble and just, I'm here to serve. I'm here to shape the battle space so our team can reach its full potential. And there's no glory in it, so.
And then this is probably a silly question. In my mind, it's relatively obvious. What's the link between leadership and the skill set? You got to be competent at your job to be in the leadership.
I think you develop a confidence in yourself after, once you've taken on enough challenging things over the years and you realize, like, I've gone, I'm a pretty avid rock climber. I've figured out, done some sketchy climbs that scared the heck out of me at times, but I got through it. The first time you jump out of an airplane, that's a little nerve wracking, but I figured it out. I got through it, and then whitewater traversing, river crossing. You start doing all these challenging stuff. You start to build up a track record that says, none of this really. You're asking me now to do something that's totally foreign and stepping into this realm of leadership. Maybe I'm first time in leadership role, but I have a track record of when you've challenged me to do hard stuff. Somehow it seems to work out, and I get it figured out. So you build, you don't want to get cocky. That'll get you in a lot of trouble. But you start building this confidence in yourself, in your abilities to take on new challenges.
That just popped another thing you said. Actually, we had lunch yesterday, and you were talking about, I'm not going to be that guy that gets out and says, suck it up, I'm not getting shot at. And this isn't that stressful, but
Right.
there are something, that you're talking about the fear of failure. Don't have that fear of failure. There's no sympathy in that realm.
Yeah, so I did. One of the things I told myself was like I was never going to be the guy sitting there at the conference room when people were, debating about something that was kind of small potatoes in my opinion. Like I didn't want to be the guy like suck it up, you're not getting shot at. I didn't want to be that guy, and I've tried pretty hard never to be that guy. I remember one time there was a discussion that was kind of a joke, debating what should be done, and I literally had somebody look down the table at me and say, "You think we look pretty pathetic right now, don't you?" And I was like, "Hey, your words, not mine. I didn't say that."
Wow.
But they could see.
They read it on your face.
They could see look on my face like, "You got to be kidding me. Is this what we're debating right now?"
Wow.
And but I never tried to go there. But and I don't want to minimize. I never want to minimize what brings stress into people's lives. And if making your quarterly numbers or whatever that's stressful for you, and because it's going to impact you, and I got it. I know. To each his own. Sure. I tend not to sweat the little stuff too much. I've been through some stuff, and I try to keep an even keel on stuff. But all that said, if what you're afraid of is stepping up and on a call, making a decision, taking action, failing, like I got no sympathy for you. Get out of the way.
Well, I mean, we talked about the hardcore truth on the employment show earlier. DD 214 doesn't guarantee employment. I mean, there's also a cold hard truth here. I mean, if you're not going to step up and you're afraid, then you're probably not going to be the leader of the team. That's just a fact.
You might end up in a leadership role, in a leadership position. You're probably never really truly going to be a leader, and your people are going to know that. Like if you're leadership by committee at all times, and never hedging yourself so you're never really making a call, so you always have an out if things don't go well. I mean, unless you're working at a really, really low end company where people aren't paying attention, like your people are paying attention, they see that. They're like, she's not want to make a call. He's not want to make a call.
I've seen that being in the leadership role without being a leader. That's a bad recipe. It
is really bad. And it happens, there's lots of good books out there. What got you here won't get you there. People probably read that one. There's lots of organizations say, hey David, you've been crushing it. You're doing X, blah, blah, blah. Now let's, you've been the best sales guy for 12 years now. We're going to put you in charge of 40 salespeople. And that's deer in the headlights. You're like, look, I'm really good at this. Right. I'm the top guy. But are you telling me you want me to be in charge of 40 people? That's scary.
So it could be a different skill set.
Yeah. And
ability.
And exactly. And you can't, the military, most of the stereotypes in this world exist because they're kind of tied to some truth. The military messes up a lot of stuff, especially, we're not that efficient with our money, but sorry. But I mean, the stereotypes exist for a reason. But one of the things that the military really gets right, in my opinion, is leadership. I mean, they beat it into people's heads. They groom it from the most junior level. Hey, you could be the most 2 junior privates in the Army. Some senior person is going to stick their head in that door and say, hey, look, one of you is senior to the other. Take charge of lead. Take care of this. And then there's every milestone. Hey, you were a good fire team leader. We're going to move you up to the next level. Hey, you were a good, troop commander. We're going to move you up to the next level. And grooming guys along the way. You can't just sprinkle fairy dust at the 18-year mark and think, okay, David, we're going to send you to an exec ed course for 5 days, and then you'll be a leader. Like that doesn't work. It's
kind of, I use the term, and I mentor veterans here in Phoenix, and I kind of say the younger veterans, 20, the bucket one.
Yep.
The old me's of the world. I read this quote, and it's like, knowledge is cumulative, I believe. I mean, what you learn in your teens, what you learn in your 20s, what you learn in your 30s, it just all builds up. So to your point, you take that 18-year-old, I mean, so to that point, is leadership kind of cumulative? I mean, you can't tell me today at 40, mid-40s,
I just hit 50.
You just hit 50?
Just hit 50.
You don't look a day over 49. But I mean, what you know now, right, you didn't know when you were 20.
Right.
I mean, it's cumulative, and you got to build up. It builds up.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, it's not about like, again, I mentioned I just survived the MBA process, and amazing process, but it's not about like, hey, I got my MBA and this is what I learned. It's a sum of everything. Hey, these are some things that we dove into. This is how it tied into the experiences that I have over my entire adult life.
Interesting.
And this is how the whole mosaic has changed.
So during the MBA process, was it more of an academic, you learn, I don't want to say facts, but you learn, academia type curriculum, or was it more life and you connecting the dots now, so to speak, as well? It was an
intense academic program for sure. I was humbled by the academic ninja skills of some of my peers. They were running circles around me, but I learned a ton, and I learned a ton. But for me, the stuff that was most interesting was one I could say, okay, I get what you're coming at. You're coming at it from an academic standpoint, which is great. And I can see that in my former life, and I can see it in my future life. Those were the things that really interested me.
Wow. I might go on a tangent now, and
okay.
there's a question somewhere in here if you bear with me, because we were talking yesterday about, integrity, and it's a slippery slope, right? Like you make one maybe slip an integrity decision here. What's that going to lead to? Then I'll do it again. Then I'll do it again. Yeah. I want to touch on that, but that made me think of something. Were there key points? And I talk about knowledge is cumulative. Okay, leadership skills might be cumulative. You learn. Were there a couple points in your career, or a couple times when you can say my command there, or that experience there, just drastically you took it to the next level and you became a better leader yourself? Oh
yeah, absolutely. And usually those are the really bad, the hard times. When something didn't go well, and I was, I stood. The term getting called to the carpet. Like I spent some time on the carpet. There's just plenty of times where I stood up like, this is the end of my career, I'm done. But I made the decisions that I made for what I really believed to be the right reasons.
Wow.
And I was like, well, if my career ends on this note, then so be it. I'm done. But I won't have my career end knowing that I didn't do what I thought was right. And those are the moments where I really learned the most about me and people around me.
Would you classify those at the time as a failure? Was that a failure, you said? At the moment, an objective you didn't meet? Just a failure.
Yeah. It could be the failure of a whole team of us, or it could be, one individual, whatever, but something didn't go well.
Well, nothing on your level, but I can relate to that from a personal standpoint. At 28 years old, I was 29, whatever, I was the CEO of a $2 million company. It crashed and burned. I made every wrong decision in the book. I had absolutely zero business being the CEO of that company, but through that failure, so I could just relate to that.
Absolutely.
Again, nothing on the level you did, but just from a personal standpoint, I could totally get that, because I learned my best lessons in my failures.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're pretty good about, driven professionals, about when things don't go well, we're pretty good about circling it up and debrief and saying, hey, where did we mess this up? Where did we drop the ball? What could we have done different? And that's great, and we should do that. I think we really learned too from debriefing the stuff that when you knock something out of the park, we just want, we're humans. We just want to high five each other and drive on. Talk about what a great job we did. Debrief it. Debrief the stuff that went well, because there's always something you can do a little bit better.
Do you see the teams in the corporate America that you live in now? That they're doing the AARs, the debriefing, stuff like that?
Trying to get them to do it. Not everybody's doing it. They're trying to get to do it in a smart manner without adding time. You walk into corporate America and tell somebody, hey, I'm gonna put another meeting on your calendar. You're gonna get run out of there with like pitchforks. So no one wants more meetings.
Some get it and some don't get it. Some just don't understand that value of that feedback and the kind of let's huddle afterwards.
Once you kind of go through the huddle, huddle's a good term for it. So once you go through that process, most people see it and they realize, oh, you're not trying to bog me down with some bureaucratic meeting.
Wow.
So yeah,
interesting. So what advice, if the veteran getting out on the bucket 1 or the bucket 3 or 4 like you were in, maybe you could relate to that. What advice would you give them if you had to?
Just, be very aware of, what you want to do, be aware of what you like doing. One of the things I really underestimated was towards the very tail end of my career, right after school, I wrote a desk for a little stretch. I was basically the dean of a schoolhouse for about just shy of 2 years before I got out and retired. But I underestimated how much time. I was like, I got a desk job. I underestimated how much time I was not at my desk. We were outside. I didn't appreciate how much time I was actually outside doing stuff.
Interesting.
And when I went to full on like working in a big finance shop and I was behind a desk all day, every day, I was kind of like caged animal. Like I was climbing the walls a little bit. I was like, you need to get me out of here.
That sucks.
Yeah, and but be aware about, what do you like doing? You want to be outdoors more? Do you want to be indoors? Where do you want to live? That's important too. You can figure out. You can go anywhere you want.
And don't be pigeonholed. Like you said, if I had this skill set in the military, I don't have to directly do it on the outside somewhere. Same industry.
Yeah.
Do you miss your time in the military? Do you think about it a lot?
Probably the same answer you get from most folks that, did the job for a stretch is, definitely miss the camaraderie, miss the crew, miss, working in a place where, there's just that mission, that sense of purpose, that everybody's driving in the same direction. Very little political jockeying going on at the tactical level. People shooting at you. You're not, there's an occasional, but it's very, very, very rare. So I miss that. I miss I've been to combat enough times. I don't need to get shot at anymore. Got that out of my system. And I mean, if you could send me to a 6-week skydiving trip for training, I'd go do that in a heartbeat right now. So the fun stuff, the shooting, skydiving, and all that stuff, I'd certainly miss that. But
obviously, and I don't think you compare, and you tell me you can't compare, these small teams on the corporate side or civilian side to anything in the military. But what are a few similarities? I mean, would you say there is a little camaraderie in some of these teams?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like I think as I said earlier, like people, this hunger for leadership, and people want it. And I think one of the big things is, military has these massive milestones that just you go out on a mission and you accomplish that mission, even the analysts who deserve all the credit in the world. If it wasn't for the analysts, we'd be just a bunch of over-tattooed, muscled-up dudes walking around in the dark and not knowing where the bad guys were. The analysts got us there. And think about the job satisfaction for the analyst who spends 24 hours, maybe a couple of weeks, and it's like, this is the guy. Here's your target. And then we come back with the target that night.
Wow.
The job satisfaction of that, the sense of purpose of that, and for us going out on the battlefield and do it. So,
wow.
And I think some teams in corporate, you're not going to replicate that, but don't miss the opportunity to acknowledge the little milestones where some stuff goes on. Hey, we're not going home tonight till this gets accomplished, and everybody rolls their sleeves up, and you're staying there till midnight, and you get the job done. Acknowledge that.
So that was my next question. What does camaraderie mean in those small teams in the corporate world? Is that what it means? Everybody's coming together to finish whatever the job is, the task is, stay late, whatever have you. Is that the camaraderie there?
Yeah, you just have to acknowledge that. The time we grow tighter with people when we go through the bad stuff, the hard stuff. And going through SEAL training in no artificial ways whatsoever puts some really bad stuff on you, and you are going to bond with that crew for life. I mean, those are my best friends for life. And because you've gone through some horrific stuff together, wow. and staying up till midnight to finish a project at work isn't the same as getting surf tortured or going a week without sleep. And I don't recommend trying to go a week without sleep. But again, acknowledge those, go through that, and I'm a believer in getting out and doing stuff together. Whether it's having lunch every Tuesday or getting out and actually doing a corporate offsite or something, like, do it.
That's awesome. So what's next for you? What's on the horizon?
Much to my wife's dismay, I'm always irons in the fire, just always looking for the next thing. We've recently moved. We're living just outside Charlotte, and we love it. It's good. Boston was great for a stretch, but it's kind of chilly, and my wife was over the weather. Yeah. So when we got her healthy, we said let's get back down south, and so we're looking at a few things. We're probably going to get a family business, kind of a lifestyle business going for us, and I'm going to continue to do what I do. I really enjoy the folks I'm working with, so it's a great opportunity.
So business is good, and you're going into these firms, and you're talking about leadership. Obviously, you enjoy that. You're good at it.
Yeah, my main. I've worked with several people. My main client right now, I work with the New York Life investment team, and they're a great bunch. And to their credit, I really like working with them. To their credit, they get it. They realize, like, this is I say the whole mind and body approach. And they get it. They're like, look, we're bringing in someone who can focus on leadership and help our teams with leadership matters. And so I just genuinely, it's a very light lifting. I like what I'm doing.
Do you study it anymore, or are you just going off and I say study it, but what publications do you read or keep up on, and how do you still stay in the game? Or just
I just read whatever I get my hands on. Yeah. There's great stuff out there. Harvard Business Review is always throwing some great stuff out there, and Bloomberg, you name it. There's no shortage. And once you're kind of in that realm, I'm sure you know the same thing. Inevitably you've got buddies that are looking at the same stuff that are always like, hey, did you catch this one? Did you catch this one? So it's, you got to keep your finger on what's next. That's awesome. Well, John, I can't thank you enough for coming out here. And not that there is, but if there's anything I could ever do to help you out, please don't hesitate to call. This is great. You jumped in on this show. We connected about 60 days ago through a mutual buddy. Shout out to Tommy Riemann. And I told Tommy what I was doing with the show, and my, this is a passion project, and just to deliver different perspectives, stories, and opinions to the veteran community. I'm a huge believer that, you can't really grow, and it sounds crazy. It sounds, 101, but you can't really grow until you hear new experiences and new opinions and stuff like this. Just hopefully we'll let our community hear new things and different perspectives. Yeah, hopefully. I think it's a little food for thought, I hope. Food for thought. Well, thank you so much for coming out. Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate you.